Alrighty, folks, one of the things I love to do on this channel is bring you new faces with new stories, especially when they come from our amazing school community. We got the one and only Hunter Gore with us today, who just closed on his first commercial deal. We're going to learn about that, but more importantly, why it happened, what did he do, and how you can do it also. How you doing, Hunter? Congratulations.
Thank you, Michael. I'm great. Thanks for having me on again.
I appreciate it. Do us a favor, a quick resume. Who is Hunter before we get into the story at hand?
Sure. So I'm a real estate agent in the Greenville, South Carolina market, do residential and commercial sales. So have a little bit of background in the commercial space, do rentals. I've had rentals for about 4 years, been an agent for about 7 years, and just, love every minute of real estate.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's talk about the deal at hand. You just posted it inside school yesterday, the day before. So thank you for that. What is the deal? And we'll kind of get to the story after that.
Sure. So the deal is a 7-unit multifamily property. What I would classify as a small apartment. It's kind of a 5 to 20 unit. Nothing big.
Yeah.
So you're going to
still commercial.
It is. It's still commercial. So 7-unit up in Dayton, Ohio. I have a handful of properties up there. So I've gotten to learn the market and build my buy box, which is important. So all came out of that.
Very cool. Well, tell us about it. How'd you find it? When did you first see it? How did it cross your radar that first time?
Yeah, so my interest in multifamily properties, particularly small apartments, started about 3 years ago when I was up in Ohio, actually, with a friend looking at a larger complex in Toledo. Learned about the Dayton market and kind of fell in love with that particular MSA. So decided that, hey, I can find stuff on MLS, I can find it on Crexy, on LoopNet, some of these commercial sites, but those deals don't really pencil out. So how do I find a good deal? And the idea came to me, hey, we need to go direct to seller. So that's reaching out to the sellers, trying to get in contact with them directly before another listing broker or a wholesaler or whoever else is involved. So decided to pull a list of properties, particularly, I think it was tired landlord, people who own properties more than 10 years, somebody who's been managing most likely for a while, and stumbled upon this property. So this, fit the bill to a T. The property had been owned for about 20 years. The gentleman who sold it to us had been self-managing the entire time, did a really fantastic job of managing it. I do have to give him a lot of credit. The property was in really good condition, all things considered. So made it a pretty easy play for us to come in and add some management on the back end.
Very cool. So again, you talked about generating a list, which is really cool. But how did you reach out? Did you just do cold calls, texts? Did you send postcards? You door knock? What did you do to reach a seller?
Yeah, so I decided to do cold calling. That's how I built my real estate sales business about 7 years ago, was by cold calling, and decided, hey, I might as well give some sellers a call. So this happened about 2.5 years ago. I went through my initial list of maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 properties or owners. Had a handful of yeses, or I'm sorry, not a handful of yeses. Had a handful of people who raised their hand and said, hey, I might have interest in the future, but I don't want to sell right now.
Yeah,
and this gentleman was one of them. So put him on a follow-up list, and I just kept following up with him and his wife for a better part of 2 years as a mix of call, text, and email. They were kind enough to give me their emails, so no postcards, but just call, text, and email. Sent him a handful of offers, probably 3 or 4 offers before we actually got one that was accepted. I tried to pitch everything from seller financing to straight cash to bank financing. Each offer was a little bit different than the next, but just trying to find what's their motivation and what's going to get them to move.
One of the first takeaways from this I wanted to make sure we hit, and we'll probably hit it again at the end, is just the amount of follow-up in connects, in conversations, and offers that it often takes, especially when a deal's off market, right? When you put it on market, you kind of raise your hand and say, bring it, let's move this inventory. But when you're talking or marketing to off market, it's about establishing relationships. And, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard studies it takes 7 connections, right? Contacts to really build that relationship and ultimately get a deal done. So first and foremost, one call closes. They certainly happen, but they're the unicorns. This is a business that takes time, discipline, follow-up. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, thank you. And, to your point, it really did take a number of times. I don't have the exact number offhand, but it was at least 8 and probably north of 10
Yeah.
Especially if you count the different offers that they had received via email and some conversations we'd had from those. So
Very cool. Well, at some point they got warm to the offer. Kind of bring us to that point. Cause again, you're following up, you're getting told not yet, not yet, not yet. At some point they go, okay, I think we're ready. So when did that happen? And when did you really start negotiating?
Yeah, so that was probably about 6 months ago. So, we're thinking, mid, late spring, getting into early summer. I'd followed up with them because I made a seller financed offer at the beginning of the year. And I'd made one or two seller financed offers before. One of the key points of motivation for the sellers, they didn't want to pay taxes to Uncle Sam, which is a good
Makes
way
sense.
to
Yeah,
defer some of those.
absolutely.
Um, After getting into more of the conversations around seller financing, the terms that we were trying to negotiate, it just was not matching up. So I
Okay.
kind of went back to the drawing board. I said, listen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay you, either the purchase price or the terms that you're wanting. So, let's go back and talk about a cash offer.
Okay.
If you were to take cash, what number would that be? They threw out a number, and I said, okay, let me run with that, plug in some numbers to my pro forma, my spreadsheet, see if we can come up with something that is going to work.
Okay. All right.
So
Well, let's talk about it. So obviously something worked out. So again, it sounds like, again, seller financing is great. You're absolutely right. You can help delay taxes because it's an installment sale. But sometimes sellers want the price and the terms, which really makes it a non-starter because you can have one or the other, right? You can have the price or the terms. Really, to make a win-win transaction, you can't have both. So it makes sense you transition to cash. What was their number, and did you agree on that number, or was there still some negotiations?
sure, yeah. So they ultimately threw out $300,000 as a sales
Okay.
price for the 7 unit. The rent roll, which is currently what it is today, because we've only owned it about 2 weeks, so haven't changed it, but it brings in right at $3,900 a month.
Okay.
With the taxes and the insurance, so just looking at kind of our harder fixed cost, the payment that they wanted every month, we would be cash flow negative, and
Yeah.
just in
Yuck.
terms. So we were talking closer to 500,000 on a seller finance price, with some payments that were nowhere near. So
Yeah. Not going to happen.
yeah, that was just not going to be a deal for anybody. So again, we went back to the drawing board, had the conversation about taxes. I said, okay, if you're going to get a cash offer, knowing that you're going to pay Uncle Sam some dollars, what is your number? And they threw out 300,000. So, I tried to get them down a little bit below that, but they were pretty firm. So
Okay.
again, took that number, plugged that into our spreadsheet, and we're able to get the numbers to work on a pro forma basis because
Okay.
the rents are where they're at. It's not really a great deal as it stands, but there's a lot of potential, a lot of meat on
Yeah.
the
So
bone.
let's talk about that potential. Again, you talk about the existing rent roll at 3,900. Where do you see that being in 12 months or less?
Yeah, so our property manager is projecting the rents to go from about 550 on average up to about 850, which is taking the
Oh,
rent roll up about $2,100 in total. And we're going to look at some ways to defer some of the expenses or reduce the expenses, particularly on the utility side. There's one water meter, which is fairly common, I've found, at least in parts of Ohio. For
okay.
multifamily, they tend to have one water meter for smaller stuff. So we're trying to find ways to either sub meter or just roll some of those utility costs onto the residents.
Okay. All right. And then you did mention that the building was in pretty decent shape. One of the things I always include when I'm picking up a new property is what I call make ready. Have you budgeted anything for that, or was it just in such top-notch condition you don't really need to do much?
In full transparency, we haven't budgeted a ton for that. We did set aside about $10,000, in some sort of rainy day fund for the property over the next 12 months.
Okay.
But one of the things we liked about the deal is that all the mechanicals are newer. So the roof
Okay.
was put on last year. So it's a
Oh, nice.
40-year commercial roof. Brand new boiler system, brand new water heaters. The electrical was updated. Panels were updated, not new, but they were updated last 10 years.
Okay.
The units, for the most part, are in pretty decent condition. There might be some cosmetics, but everything checks the box. There's only
And
two. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. I was going to say, is it full? Sorry, I forgot to ask.
It is full. Yep. So
Okay.
fully occupied right now. The only two things that we may have to do, and this is more based on personal preference. Well, one is We will probably need to redo the small parking lot in the back, which we've got a quote for about $7,000. And then there is a possible plumbing sewer line going out to the road that we might need to do some repairs on, just based on the things we can see. There's nothing wrong with it today, but it's older. We're thinking, hey, next 18 months we might need to invest 5-10 grand here to do some stuff.
I like it. I like it. So so ultimately you went and just got a commercial loan. So you had to put down what, 25% or 30?
25%. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And, ultimately everyone always tells you, hey, commercial loans are harder to do than residential. And I didn't really understand why. I mean, I've done the duplex with the DSCR. I've done the single family conventional, but doing a commercial loan on a true commercial property is a little tricky. So I took this to probably 3 or 4 banks, one of which was a local credit union in Ohio. Showed them the property, showed them the rent roll. They initially told us, hey, we can do this, no problem. So we start the process, do the underwriting, and then we get pretty much down to the end where we could, at this point, either approve or deny the loan and schedule closing. And he said, hey, this property is just not going to meet the DSCR requirements that we have, which was only a 1.0 DSCR. Particularly because the property rents for $3,900 today, and there's such a large gap between what we could take the property from, what we could increase the rents to quite literally tomorrow or 30 days from now.
Right.
So the bank just could not get past the fact that the rents were not great today and denied us. So
So you burnt 4 weeks. You paid for an appraisal, right? You burnt time and money. That did not feel good, I'm sure.
No, not at all. So then at that point, I'm scrambling. I was actually on vacation when this happened, so I'm sitting here and in the mountains, no cell service, trying to figure out how I piece this deal back together. So made some calls. Actually reached out to Stephen Dow, and his team was able to get everything done for us. So thankful that we have great community members in the school group. People like Stephen that we can reach out and do business with.
Nice. So Steven's team came through again. They've helped me multiple times. Right. That's Velocity Mortgage.
Correct. Yep. Velocity Mortgage.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So I talked to him later today, or actually what's today? Tomorrow, I guess I talked to him. So I'll let him know. Good job. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's always nice to have a plan B. I always see Velocity as my kind of plan B when plan A blows up, because again, they're a make sense lender, right? They're a DSCR lender. So their rules are a little bit different, and they come through when they say they can. So shout out to that team. So as you kind of step back from this, now having owned it for a couple of weeks, you've done deals, duplexes and things of that nature. What are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest takeaways for me is that the commercial stuff like this, the small apartments, they're not as scary as they seem to be. Everyone thinks, oh, it's more than 5 units, I'm going to struggle with getting qualified for financing, or, whatever the limiting belief is. And now that I've done my first one, I'm thinking, okay, this is not that difficult. I can see why people want to do a 50 unit or 100 unit, because it's the same process.
It is shockingly the same. The paperwork's a little bit thicker, but it's the same process.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I would really encourage people to, dive in, figure out what your goals are. If something like this makes sense for you in the long run, work toward and plan toward that, because this doesn't just come overnight. Obviously I spent a couple years following up with the seller, knowing that I might have the opportunity to do this deal in the future. So it takes hard work and dedication, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's talk about school since we got a few minutes. Obviously, you're an active participant. I saw the post Inside School. You are a broker. You've been doing this a while. You own some stuff. So tell me your experience with our ORAT school community.
Yeah, so school has really been a very transformational group for me, at least. One of the things that is difficult in real estate, both being a broker agent as well as an investor, is it can be very much a single player game. What I mean by that is you're doing it by yourself, for yourself. You might have a spouse or a significant other, helping you, but you don't have friends that you're going into the office with to celebrate deals about every day. It's really just, hey, how can I motivate myself to keep pushing the ball forward, doing deals, helping clients? And so, real estate is very much a single player game, but the school group really offers collaboration, which is what I love. people can go in there, they can post, hey, I'm a new agent or I'm a new investor. I've never done a deal. I'm looking at, solving this hurdle in my thought process or in my physical process. And as far as purchasing, and there are people who are just going to jump on there and, to your point, be go-givers, they're really trying to figure out how can I help people, not just, do whatever's in it for me. So.
Yeah, when I look at the school community and specifically the forums, I smile almost every day because it's very active, right? People are coming in and introducing themselves, asking questions, commiserating. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Bad stuff happens. But, we have so many go-givers just helping. And it's great that I'm not even close to the most active person in the community anymore. And it's fun for me to watch everybody going the same direction. That's what we're building inside this community of wealth builders is everybody's going the different or the same direction. They may be at a different point. They may be going at different speeds, but you can count on everybody going the same direction. And, it would not be that way if it was a free community, right? If it was a free community, it'd be full of spam and bots and haters and all of that stuff. The fact that it's 67 pennies a day is just enough to keep the haters away. And it's kind of a filter. And I just love the fact that it's such a positive community. So it's fun to watch for me.
No, it certainly is. And, for the cost, $20 a month. I mean, I just think that's, such a no-brainer because you look at some of the costs to join a local RIA in your area or even bigger pockets. And, quite frankly, some of those just are not giving the value that this group is bringing. So I think regardless of where you're at in your journey, a new person haven't bought their first property, or you might own 25 properties, the one rental at a time school group is where you need to be.
No, I love that, buddy. Well, Hunter, you're amazing. Thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story of your first commercial building. If somebody wanted to reach out or follow you, what do they do?
Yeah, reach out to me on YouTube. That's where I'm trying to be most active right now. My channel name is just my name, Hunter Gore. So reach out, and I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. And if you're inside school, send them a note. Tell them congratulations and great job. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Michael.